Good day. Today I'm going to be discussing Chapter 17 of Java, Making a Connection. Let's begin. So, basically in this chapter, what we're covering is making a connection using client and server. So the client side and the server side, and connecting those two to form a connection of the application. So it's basically all about networking and how your Java programs can talk to other programs over the internet or on a local network. So think of it as teaching your code how to send messages just like texting between phones. So what we're basically covering is connecting to other computers using sockets, sending and receiving data over a network, building client-server applications, and using threads to handle multiple tasks at once. So basically we have some terminology here. What is a client? So basically the client side is the program that initiates the connection. Server side, the program that waits for connections and response. So the server side will wait for a connection from the client and then respond with a specific basically with specific data. It will pass the client specific data, and then on the client side you can see that data that comes from the server, essentially indicating that there is a connection. We have the socket. It's a two-way communication link between client and server. So basically the socket is what connects the client side to the server side. So basically it's like a phone line connecting you to a specific shop, for instance. Then we have the port, which is a numbered door on a computer where data enters or leaves. So basically, like, the server will be running on a specific port number, like port 5000 or so on the local host. IP address, the unique address of a computer on a network. A thread, a lightweight process that runs alongside others. Thread pool is a group of reusable threads. So the basic networking flow, basically the server opens a socket, right? So the server will basically open a socket. Remember, the socket is what connects the program that waits for connections and response to the program that initiates the connection. That's what the socket does. It makes the connection. Then the client connects to the server's IP and port. Then they exchange messages, and the server may use threads to handle multiple clients. So for instance, you have this code example here as the client side. So we can see here simple client clause. Within the main method, we create a socket. This socket is what connects us to the server side, and you can see we declare localhost there and the port number that the program is running on. Then we use input stream input socket.get input stream. This is what basically gets the specific message from the server. Then buffered reader over here, object, new input stream reader input. This is basically gonna like it basically receives the data from the server side as a stream byte, and then it basically like reforms that data into an object or text, so we can see that text. So then string response, read line, reader.readline is going to read the text or the message from the server side. Then over here, then basically here we have this system.out.print line. It's just gonna print the response that the client gets from the server side, and then on this line it just closes the socket. So basically the socket is what connects the server to the client. Then in this piece of code we have the simple server. So this is the server side of the of the application. So we declare the simple server class over here. Then essentially we create this object server socket and declare the port that it's running on. Here's just indicating the server is waiting for connection. Then as soon as the server gets connected to the client side, what happens is before that happens, this line of code is indicating that it's waiting for the client to make that, or to basically make that request for connection. As soon as that happens, it uses this accept method. So it says server socket dot accept. Server socket is basically what creates that connection. So using server socket, we will accept that connection from the client side, and then the client socket object is created from that connection. Then we have this print writer object, which is essentially what it's doing is it is basically sending the message out to the client side as a stream byte before it becomes a text. Then writer.println is writing that message, hello from server, is writing that message to the client side, and then we close the client socket and we close the server socket. So that's basically how the client side works and the server side works in those examples. Then we also have a threaded server example. Without threads, your server can only talk to one client at a time. So with threads, it can talk to many clients. So if we want one server to connect to many clients and communicate with many clients, then we use threads for that, so that there's like there's multiple threads running in the background in order to communicate with multiple servers. So yeah, basically here we have multi-threaded server, and we can see that it's also creating the server socket therefore to initiate the connection between the server side and the client side, indicating that the server is running. And in this while loop, it is waiting for the client side to make that request, and as soon as that's made, it accepts the connection, and client socket object is created. And then here we have the thread that's declared basically, and we start the threads task initially. This is the client side, which is implementing runnable. Here is a constructor which initializes the field. Then we have this run method, where within it we know that it's writing, the client side is writing this specific message to the server side. Welcome, you're connected to the server. So yeah, so let's see how it works basically in the code and the output we get with this example. So firstly, you can see the client side code and the server over here, and let's explain how the connection is made and the output we get from that. So we declare the client class and the main method. Then here we connect to the server on localhost at port 5000. So in order to connect to the server, we need to declare socket object over here. That's what makes the connection, right? So when that connection is made, if we come here, right, basically what happens is on the server side, we are creating a server socket listening on port 5000. So we have our server socket. So here we have this socket, which is connecting to the server. Then in the server side, we have the server socket object on port 5000. And initially it's just saying server started, waiting for the client. So now the server is waiting for the client to basically make that connection, right? And when it does, it waits for the client to connect on this line of code. As soon as this is created, or this runs, this object socket, it's obviously going to run on port 5000. And yeah, as soon as that is initialized, then what happens is this accept method runs, meaning that it's going to accept the connection from the client side. And as soon as that connection is accepted, then this client socket object is created, and then it basically states that the client is connected to the server, right? Because it accepted that connection, because this object was created. So on the client side here we have this line of code, Buffett reader object, new input streamer, and then we declare in parentheses socket, referring to the connection object, get input stream. What this is doing is creating a reader to receive data from the server. So this line of code is just going to receive data from the server with get input stream over there. So since it wants to receive data from the server, the data that needs to be sent is basically this text over here. But before that is sent, in the server side we have this object which creates a writer to send data to the client. So it first creates the writer using print writer object, client socket, right, which is where the connection is accepted, get output stream. So when that happens, then it can now send a welcome message to the client, hello from the server. And when that message is sent, what happens is the client side is going to read a line of text sent by the server, and it does that using in.readLine, and that message that it reads, which is this message over here, is saved to this message variable. And then what happens is it's going to print received from server. It's going to print the message that is received from the server that was read. And what happens is on this side, it basically just closes the client socket, and it also closes the server socket, and then the socket that made that connection between the client and the server is closed. And that's basically how it works. So let's see how the output is. So we run the server first. That's the server. So you can see here on the server, it says server started, waiting for the client to make the connection. Then the client connects. So when that connection is made, then a message can be sent from the server, and then that message that is received from the server is hello from the server. That's what the client receives. And after that, then it just closes the program, the whole socket. That's basically how the connections work between a server side and a client side. So yeah, that's a summary of chapter 17.